My fiance and I have 2 kids. We agreed that I would stay home and care for them until they both go off to school. He would pay all the bills and such, since it would be a lot cheaper for me to stay home versus sending our disabled child to daycare. I received some money for Christmas from my dad that he told me to spend on myself and the kids. My fiance found out about this money and asked to borrow it. I told him I didn't really want to, since we needed diapers and wipes and other stuff for our kids, and I planned on buying those with the money my dad gave me. My mom ended up buying them as a late gift. My fiance decided to write out a contract that stated he legally had to pay me back in 2 weeks. I added in that if he couldn't pay it by his own deadline, that he'd owe an additional $100, and he agreed to that. He signed the contract and marked it with a thumbprint and everything. The first deadline was on the 13th this month. He paid me $5 back of the $125 he owed me by then. The second deadline is the 31st. He's now telling me he just can't pay it back and is saying that partners don't do this, that they're supposed to help each other out, etc. I told him it was his idea for the contract and that he agreed to both terms. It's even on video of him signing it, by the way. My thing is, I wouldn't be so pressed about being paid back if the day I lent him the money, he didn't decide to buy $60 worth of Zaza instead of paying his car note like he said he would. He's saying, I should be more than glad to help my partner who's struggling, which I would be, if he wouldn't spend his bill money on Zaza and the lottery. So I told him, either he can pay back the full amount of $225 that he agreed to paying me, or he will get absolutely nothing from me anymore. I have 0 income. The money I get is gifted to me by family or on the rare occasion from him. I've been trying to find a work-from-home job, but haven't found one I qualify for yet. And since he doesn't work a regular job, I can't just work on his off hours, since he doesn't have a set schedule. Some days he works mornings, some days he works nights, and he doesn't know until the day of or the day before. Am I the idiot here? Edit. This got a lot more comments than I anticipated, and I'm still trying to read through them all. I saw a lot of questions, so I wanted to make an edit to answer as many as I can instead of repeating myself a million times in replies. When he and I had first gotten together, he was doing a lot better financially. He wasn't spending his money on Zaza nearly as much as he is now. He was actually providing at first. Even when we had our first kid 4 years ago, he was still pretty good. We planned on stopping at 1 kid until our oldest was much older. So I'd gotten on birth control not long after having our oldest. My birth control ended up failing, and I found out I was pregnant too late to do anything about it. At that time, things were still doing a lot better than they are now, so I figured things would stay good after having our second. When I was still pregnant with my youngest, our oldest became disabled. She suffered a terrible fall that drastically changed everything for us. She's been in and out of the hospital more times than I can even count. It was sudden and unexpected. She was already receiving Medicaid, so medical bills weren't and aren't an issue, thankfully, but her disability has still taken its toll on everyone. When he asked to borrow the $125, I told him no at first, but he kept insisting that he'd lose his car if he didn't make the car payment. It wasn't until he answered a FaceTime call from his dealer with me sitting next to him that I found out that he had used $60 of the $125 to buy Zaza. I saw someone say, "I smoke too" in the comments. I don't. I tried Zaza once when I was like 20 and hated it. And I've told my fiance that I was okay with him smoking as long as it didn't interfere with necessities, even before having kids with him. He seemed to be on board with that for years and years. Then it's like a flip switched. I still don't mind him smoking, just as long as our family's needs are met first. I also saw some people suggesting doing Uber Eats and stuff like that. I definitely would, but we are a 1-car family, and he always has the car when he works, otherwise I'd be out there doing deliveries. I have applied for disability for my oldest, but the process is still ongoing, so we haven't received payment yet. I do try to do surveys to make a little extra money every chance I get, but I'm going to look into the work-from-home suggestions some of y'all had and try to get one ASAP. I do receive WIC and EBT, so I buy most of the food. He buys anything extra, and pays the rest of the bills, or rather he's supposed to. He doesn't tell me much about his finances, so I don't know exactly how much money he has coming in and how much the bills are. When I ask him, he gets pretty angry, so I just drop the subject. A lot of people also suggested I should leave him. I know that's probably for the better, but it's hard when you still love someone. He was a great partner for years before we had our first, and he was a great father for a while after having our first. I don't want to just throw that all away. I hope I explained things a lot better. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. He's right. Partners don't do what you two did. But if mine asked to borrow money when I don't have a job and then blew it on Zaza and lotto tickets, I would be furious. Honestly, I feel like you should have already figured out they are a jerk. They are putting you through financial abuse and are clearly unreliable and untrustworthy. Comment 2. You have a much bigger problem here. You have 2 kids with a man you don't trust to pay you back $125. I agree that it sounds like you are right to not trust him, but how are you going to raise 2 kids with someone who you can't trust with $125? Not the idiot. Now for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a hectic 3 months since my last post, and boy do I have an update for you all. Buckle up because things have taken some unexpected turns. First off, the situation with the borrowed money from Christmas has escalated. My fiancé missed the second deadline too, and when I confronted him, he got defensive. He said that he had unexpected expenses and couldn't pay me back the full amount. I reminded him of the contract, but he just shrugged it off, saying that I was being unreasonable and that I should trust him to pay me back when he could. Now, here's where things get really crazy. I found out that the unexpected expenses were actually for a new gaming console. I couldn't believe it. I was furious, not just because he lied, but because he prioritized a game over our family's needs. I felt betrayed and didn't know what to do. In the midst of all this, I remembered the advice from some of you about finding a work-from-home job. I managed to land a gig doing customer service from home. It's not much, but it's something. I was proud of myself for taking that step. But it also meant I had less time to keep an eye on what my fiancé was up to. One day, while he was out supposedly working, I decided to do some digging. I found receipts for more than just Zaza and lottery tickets. There were bar tabs and even charges for a dating app subscription. My heart sank. I confronted him when he got home, and after a heated argument, he confessed that he'd been feeling trapped and wanted to live a little, before settling into his role as a father and provider. I was devastated. I thought about all the years we'd been together, how he used to be so responsible and caring. It was like I didn't even know who he was anymore. I told him that if he wanted to live a little, he could do it without me and the kids. But then, another news dropped. He broke down, apologizing profusely, and revealed that he'd been struggling with depression ever since our oldest became disabled. He felt like he'd failed as a provider and didn't know how to cope. He'd turned to these distractions as a way to escape. I was torn. On one hand, I was angry and felt like I couldn't trust him. On the other, I remembered the man I fell in love with, who had been there for me through thick and thin before all this started. I suggested we go to couples counseling, and to my surprise, he agreed. Counseling has been tough. We've had to face some hard truths about our relationship and ourselves. It's been a whirlwind of emotions, but it's also brought us closer in ways I didn't expect. We've started to communicate better and work through our issues. In the midst of all this, my oldest disability payments finally came through. It was a huge relief financially, but it also brought up new challenges. We had to learn how to manage her care with our new budget, and it was a steep learning curve. As for the money he owed me, he did eventually pay it back, with the additional $100 as agreed in the contract. It was a small victory, but it felt like a step in the right direction. Now, here's the jaw-dropping moment you've all been waiting for. Last week, I found out I was pregnant again. It was a complete shock. We hadn't planned on having more kids, especially with everything going on. I haven't told my fiancé yet. I'm not sure how he'll react, given the state of our relationship and his recent confession about feeling trapped. Mom's friend offers me and my husband a discount on her house. But then she delays our move-in date, so I get sweet revenge on her. I, 25-year-old female, and my husband, 25-year-old male, moved into an apartment in October of 2022 and had been looking for a house. In January of 2023, one of my mom's friends, we'll call her Mary, approximately 60 years old female, told my mom that she was moving into a condo about an hour away from where her house was, so that she could be closer to her mom. Mary is also mentally disabled from a work accident years ago, but is able to live alone and take care of herself. She asked if we wanted to take a look at the house, and we loved it, and said we were interested in moving forward. We agreed on no realtors and to use real estate lawyers. We were also getting a discounted price. At this point, she mentioned that her condo was still under construction, with a projected finish date of June. That was okay with us, and we began the process in April. As with most construction projects, there were delays, so we were patient with her as our original timeframe of going to settlement and moving in, July, passed us by. I had talked to her in August, asking if my husband and I moving in October 1st works for the timing of her condo being finished. She said that it would, and I told her that was great, and that I would let my landlord know that we would be breaking our lease. I also informed our real estate lawyer and asked him to set the settlement date accordingly. Less than a week later, I received an angry email from my lawyer stating that he was quitting because Mary and I had been making plans behind his back that he was not aware of. Apparently, she had told her lawyer that we agreed to settle October 25th, which was not what we had discussed. I emailed him back and resolved the issue, but we were not to contact the owner without him. This is where I feel like I might be the jerk. My husband and I, along with our lawyer, had an incredibly uncomfortable conversation with her about how she needed to be out by no later than October 13th, because our lease was up on the 15th. She was crying and saying that she had no one to help her move out, and that her condo was not complete because they did not install safety bars in the shower yet. I explained that we would not have a place to live if she was not out, and that settlement was 2 weeks prior to when we asked her to move out, so she would be living in a house that no longer belongs to her. I also said she has the ability to live with her mother while the bars get installed. I said there are many services available that will pack and move your stuff for you. She ignored what I said and continued to cry, and actually was whimpering and calling for her mommy. I ended the call because I was so uncomfortable. She cried to my mom on the phone about this. I told my mom my side of the story, but she continues to mention that I wasn't being reasonable and should have allowed her to stay longer. I feel I was patient and accommodating throughout the process. We have been in the house for months, but my parents still don't approve of how I handled it. Was I the jerk? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Evidently, her disability is making it harder for her to plan or organize her move out of the house. At least, I can see how this could be an explanation for her panic. Doesn't she have her own lawyer, though? It feels like someone should offer to help at some point. I'm not saying it has to be you, but maybe if it were you, it would solve your problem. You could help her book a moving service, and you could unalive 2 birds with 1 stone, and without anyone being the AH. ETA. Somehow, I skipped the last sentence saying you are in the house. How did she eventually move out? Comment 2. You're the idiot. Based on your description, it is clear that Mary is not in the position to make significant complex decisions, even if she can live by herself. In situations like this, she should be supported by a professional who has a fiduciary duty to look after her best interests. A simple real estate lawyer does not qualify. Moreover, according to your post, you negotiated directly with a mentally disabled person without even having real estate lawyers present. You most likely, unintentionally, took advantage of a person who is not in the position to be involved in negotiations with you. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments on my last post. I wanted to give you an update on the whole house situation with Mary, my mom's friend. So, after that super awkward conversation with Mary, things got even crazier. My husband and I were really stressed out because we had already told our landlord we were leaving. and now we were stuck in this mess. We were counting down the days, hoping Mary would get her act together. Well, a couple of days later, my mom calls me and she's furious. She tells me Mary's been spreading rumors that we're kicking her out with nowhere to go. I couldn't believe it. We had been so patient with her, even with all the delays. I tried to explain to my mom that we had offered solutions, like Mary staying with her own mom, but my mom wasn't having any of it. She kept saying we were being too harsh on Mary. Then, out of nowhere, my husband's brother, who had been helping us with some of the moving logistics, tells us he saw Mary at a local diner, laughing and having a good time with some friends. It was like she didn't have a care in the world while we were panicking about where we were going to live. Fast forward to the week before we were supposed to move in, and we get a call from Mary's lawyer. He says Mary is ready to move out, but she needs help with packing and moving her stuff. Remembering how she ignored my suggestion about hiring a moving service, I was hesitant, but we decided to help her out. We didn't want any more drama, so we show up at Mary's house, and it's like she's barely packed anything. It was a total mess. We spent the entire weekend helping her pack up her life. It was exhausting, but we thought, okay, at least this is finally happening. The day of the move, we're all set to go, and Mary throws us another curveball. She starts crying, saying she can't leave the house because it's where she raised her kids and has all her memories. It was a total shock. We had no idea she was so attached to the place. We felt bad, but we also needed to move in. After a lot of tears and talking, Mary finally agrees to leave. We thought that was the end of it, but nope, there's more. The next day, our lawyer calls us, and he's confused. He says Mary's lawyer told him that we agreed to let Mary stay in the house until the end of October. We were like, what? No way. Turns out, Mary had misunderstood our conversation. She thought when we said we were moving in on October 1st, we meant she could stay until October 31st. It was a huge mix-up. We had to clear things up with both lawyers, and it was just a big headache. Finally, the day comes when we're supposed to move in. We get to the house, and guess what? Mary is still there. She's sitting on the porch, looking all sad. We were so confused. We asked her what was going on, and she said she thought we were moving in the next day. At this point, we were just done with the whole situation. We had to explain again that today was the day we agreed on. Mary finally left, but it was so awkward. We felt like the bad guys, even though we were just trying to move into our new home. So, we've been in the house for a few months now, and it's been great. But the whole thing with Mary has put a strain on my relationship with my mom. She still thinks we could have handled things better, but I don't know what else we could have done. Nasty mom says my family is trash, so I let my daughter sleep over at her house. Oh boy, she regrets it. My child R, 12-year-old female, is invited to a sleepover. She has 3 best friends forever, BFFs, A, 12-year-old female, N, 12-year-old female, and B, 12-year-old male, all friends since 1st grade. Since starting middle school, they have had regular sleepovers. We have been able to avoid hosting one at N's house until now. N's mother, T, is not my favorite person. We live in a US suburb, but T and I come from the same area a few states over. We graduated from neighboring high school. My hometown has some vocal bigots, and T has echoed some of that sentiment over the years. We are black, and R's friends are white. We live in a well-off area. I'm a scientist with a PhD for a government contractor, and my husband has an MBA and owns a consulting firm. When we first met T at R's 7th birthday, she jokingly asked how we could afford our home and if we were drug dealers. It was awkward, but I let it go. It is a lazy stereotype to imply black people with a nice house are criminals. I assumed she was just awkward or nervous. Over the years, she has made jokes about me being light-skinned, saying I'm an affirmative action hire, how it is easier for blacks to get into college than whites, etc. I have tried to question her logic, but I confront her BS with more patience than she deserves, so R doesn't lose a friend. Part of me hopes that she learns from our interactions. I grew up poor and black around poor white people. I understand that class oppression is real. I am certain T has experienced the oppression of capitalism, but that doesn't mean that I also haven't experienced it just because I am better off now. I spent most of my childhood living in a trailer park. It was not easy being black and poor in rural America. B's family is very wealthy, and I've never heard T say a single rude thing in their home. Although she did initially have an issue with B taking part in the sleepovers, until A's mom pointed out that they are kids and B is openly gay. A's parents are working-class white people. A's mom has spoken up a few times when she heard T say discriminatory nonsense. We've never talked about it directly, but A's mom and I have shared a few poignant looks over the years. All of this makes me unsure what R will experience at N's house. I won't be there to protect her. N is a kind child. Her and R are close, and I trust my daughter to pick good people. I don't want to punish or isolate N because her mom has problematic views. N doesn't seem to share her views. N has talked to me about how she wants to be a scientist and ask questions about grad school and my job. My husband agrees with my concerns, but doesn't think anything will happen. I haven't said anything to R, just that I needed to check our schedule next weekend. I think I'd be a jerk for causing drama and tension between a group of 12-year-olds who just want to have a sleepover. Would I be the jerk if I made my daughter miss this sleepover, or should I not cause drama for R? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. This is a complicated situation. I had a friend whose mom wouldn't let us hang out because my dad is a conspiracy theory enthusiast. This has made me and my friend hate her for the longest time and strained my friend's relationship with her mom. At the same time, you need to protect your daughter, especially if the mom is discriminatory and bigoted. But it's also unfair because your daughter's friend seems to not share her mother's view, which is why they're friends in the first place. It's kind of unfair that because of her mom, she gets punished by not seeing her friend. In the end, you are not the idiot for being concerned. I hope you all can figure something that works. Comment 2. I'm black, and I remember having friends that I couldn't go into their house or have come to my birthday parties. The real crux is that you do not want your child around someone who is bigoted against them. Even if it's not overt, small slights or comments can stick, and the kid remembers them forever. I certainly remember. No, you should keep your kid away from that family, and honestly away from that kid. They'll start to adopt their parents' mindset over time, if not already. The next thing you know, they'll come home asking what a derogatory term is. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post about R's sleepover at N's house, and I figured it was time for an update. Throwaway, just in case. So, after a lot of thought, my husband and I decided to let R go to the sleepover. We had a long talk with her about how to handle any uncomfortable situations and to call us if she needed anything. R was over the moon excited and promised she'd be fine. The day of the sleepover, R packed her favorite pajamas and her toothbrush, hugged us both, and off she went. I won't lie, I was nervous the whole evening, but I tried to distract myself with a new book and some work I brought home. Now, here's where things get interesting. Around 9 p.m., I got a text from A's mom. She was at N's house to drop off a forgotten sleeping bag and overheard T making a snide remark about certain people and their fancy degrees. A's mom, bless her, didn't let it slide. She confronted T, reminding her that respect and kindness are more important than where someone comes from or what they look like. I was shocked but grateful that A's mom stood up for us. The next morning, R came home with stories of the movies they watched and the games they played. She was beaming, and it seemed like the sleepover went well. But then she paused and told me that N had stood up to her mom when T started on one of her rants after A's mom left. N told her mom that she was being unfair and that R's family was really cool. I was so proud of N for speaking up, and it seemed like T was taken aback by her own daughter calling her out. A few days later, T called me. I braced myself for an awkward conversation, but to my surprise, she apologized. She said that N had been talking to her about how her words were hurtful and that she didn't want to be that kind of person. T admitted she had a lot to learn and asked if we could start over. I was cautious, but agreed to meet for coffee. During our coffee meet, T shared her own history. She grew up in a family that didn't value education and was often discouraged from pursuing her dreams. She confessed that seeing people like me succeed where she didn't was a source of her resentment. It wasn't an excuse for her behavior, but it helped me understand her a bit more. We talked about our kids and how we both wanted the best for them. It was a step in the right direction. Meanwhile, R and her friends were closer than ever. B's family invited the whole group over for a weekend day of fun in their pool, and T even offered to help drive the kids. It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot to see her trying to make amends. As for my husband and me, we've been reflecting on how these events have brought us closer to the other parents. We've started planning a community picnic with A's and B's families, hoping to bridge the gaps between us and create a more inclusive environment for our kids. It's been a journey, couple of weeks, but I'm hopeful that this is the start of a more positive chapter for all of us. And as for R, she's already planning the next sleepover at our house. She wants to show her friends her science project, and I can't wait to see them all working together, learning from each other. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.